We're finally heading to Digue, and this is the island that everybody in Seychelles talks about.
But the main problem is the sea state. We're bouncing around quite a lot. Well, it's not a problem for Florence. It's a bit of a problem for Amy and I. We're both feeling a bit queasy, which for me is the first time in a very long time that's happened.
However, any discomfort on the passage was swiftly put behind us as we explored this gem of an island and met its prehistoric residents. We are Matt and Amy. We've been living aboard and sailing around the world for 5 years now on our 37-foot sailboat, Florence.
Having recovered from our 3,044-mile sail across the Indian Ocean to get here, it is time for us to sail out of Port Victoria and explore further afield in the beautiful islands of Seychelles. We are off to Digue.
We're finally heading to Digue, and this is the island that everybody in Seychelles talks about. When they talk about Digue, they go, "Oh, Digue, that's lovely." So we've got pretty high expectations about the island here. It's much quieter than the main island of Mahé because there's only a few cars on the island, and most of the transport is by bike.
And they got giant tortoises.
Oh yeah, and they've got giant tortoises, which despite being in the Seychelles for a few weeks, we still have not seen.
It's not going to be without its challenges. Digue doesn't have a really safe anchorage. It does have a harbour though, which you can go into, but it's really tight quarters, so you have to drop the anchor and reverse in and kind of tie off to a couple of trees on the shore, or so we've been told, and what it looks like from the satellite images. There's not much space in there. Florence doesn't go very well in reverse. This is the big problem for us because of her keel configuration and because of the prop walk that we've got. She requires a very long run up in order to go straight line in reverse, so it's going to be pretty difficult, especially with 30 knots if it's windy in the anchorage. The wind was whistling through the anchorage before we set off today, and because we're in an area with strong trade winds, we've got all 3 reefs in the mainsail and our staysail on. And staysail is becoming a real go-to sail now we're in stronger trade wind conditions.
Ever had break into the cockpit. We just had a massive wave come and smack the side of Florence and then dump the entire wave into the cockpit. I took most of it, but yeah, we had about that much water in the bottom of the cockpit for a while.
Get it drained out?
Yeah.
Well, we're cracking along really well. It's pretty breezy out here, but the main problem is the sea state. We're bouncing around quite a lot. Well, it's not a problem for Florence. It's a bit of a problem for Amy and I. We're both feeling a bit queasy, which for me is the first time in a very long time that's happened. I guess we've been at anchor for about 3 weeks in a flat, calm anchorage, and then we just come out into this and the boat's being thrown around quite a bit. So Amy's down below having a bit of a snooze. But thankfully we've only got 16 miles to go, so we don't have to put up with it for too long. feeling much better now that we're in the calm, in the shelter of Digue. Well, here we go. We tried contacting the harbour master again, but we can't get hold of him. So we're just going to go in and see if there's any space. We've got the fenders out ready, we've got the lines out ready. The only thing we haven't got is the dinghy down ready, because it's a bit choppy out here to get the dinghy down. So we'll go and have a look.
Going to help you.
Okay, thank you.
You have a longer line, give me a longer line.
Okay, hold it there a minute, Amy.
It turns out Stephen helps a lot of people to moor here, and we're very grateful for his help. It's much more difficult than just dropping the anchor. We first have to drop the anchor accurately, directly offshore of where we want to end up, and then motor backwards towards the wall, whilst letting out the chain, but not too much.
Okay, let it out a bit more now.
Stephen then took our lines in his dinghy and tied us off to the shore. You really do need 3 people for this. 1 to drop the anchor at the bow, 1 to drive, and 1 in a dinghy to take the lines ashore. On top of that, because Florence does not reverse very well, Stephen acted as a tugboat and shoved Florence's bum round so that she slotted into the gap between the other boats. Stephen definitely earned his tip by saving us time, stress and potential damage to Florence if we'd had to do this by ourselves.
It was our first time mooring like this, and we are very happy to have had help. The calm of the harbour is a relief after the bumpy sail here. Now we're in and secure, we can relax, ready to start exploring the Digue tomorrow. The most exciting thing about the Digue is the giant tortoise that just roam around the island, and because we didn't stop in Galapagos, we haven't actually seen one yet. So we're going to head to the nature reserve in the south of the island, and it's also supposed to be one of the most beautiful beaches in all of Seychelles.
This is your trusty steed for the day, Amy?
Yeah, got a proper sized bike for the first time in a very long time. Unfortunately, the tyre of my folding bike has completely gone, and we can't get another one that size. It's quite a specialist size in Seychelles, so I've had to rent a bike for the day. But that means I get gears and full-sized wheels.
Oh. I've got the trusty De Hon still. It's got bigger wheels than the Brompton, so normally it's quicker. But I might struggle today when Amy's got a proper bike.
The Digue has a lovely, relaxed atmosphere. There are very few vehicles allowed on the island, so most people get around by bicycle. We immediately started to appreciate why everybody recommended us to come and spend some time on this beautiful, friendly island.
Nothing's free in Seychelles.
Here in the estate there's a pen full of giant tortoises. To be honest, we weren't expecting them to be in a pen instead of roaming wild, but apparently there are other islands where they're allowed to roam around. We found them tucking into their breakfast.
You didn't say hello to me.
You communing with the giant tortoise?
He likes it. He loves it though, doesn't he?
Just seem to.
They really seem to like having their neck scratched, and they'll come up to you for a neck scratch. And then another one will see that you're you're scratching one, so it'll come up and try and barge the other one out of the way. I don't think their eyesight's particularly good though, because they come up really close and they put their eyes very close to you.
And this one snuck up for a neck scratch. Like, hello.
This is one of the bigger ones. Do you reckon he's 100 years old?
Could be.
Actually, I don't even know if it's a boy or a girl.
I think I can tell which one's the boy.
It's all the little ones that are really friendly. There are two of them that were particularly enjoying their neck being scratched, and they followed me from one end to the other. It's getting a little bit close now. I think if I'm not careful, I might be mounted by a giant tortoise.
Have you seen the one coming up behind you?
I think it's time to get out. There's a lot more of them here than I expected, but I am pretty disappointed that they're all in a pen. Apparently there are some that just roam around the island, so hopefully we'll find some of those. They've got plenty of space. They seem happy enough.
Certainly one of them was very happy. Possibly two of them were very happy.
Yeah.
Even before we arrived, we had heard a lot about Seychelles as a top honeymoon destination, famous for its white sand beaches and granite boulders. It certainly is a stunning place to visit, even though we are here during the less popular windy season. Seychelles version of a sleeping policeman. Giant tortoise.
And yes, I did pack a picnic for the tortoises. It's got... What about carrot, mate? Carrot? Oh yeah, can you bite that? I'll hold it. How's that?
I think he likes the carrot. It's the Seychelles version of a sleeping policeman or a speed bump. Giant tortoise in the road. Ow!
Put your fingers too close.
Normally Florence feels like a massive palace to us, but we're just moored alongside a 45-foot cataract, and it's crazy how much taller she is. So okay, so it's a 45-foot cat, but it's got 2.5 times the amount of freeboard that we've got. We feel very small when we're sandwiched between this one 45 foot, that one 50 foot. Yeah. But I'd rather go around the world on Florence than either of these two. I'd probably rather be at anchor on one of those two. It's pretty tight here in Digue harbour. There is a lot of movement here though. We've already had to move once because we were down the end, and a ship wanted to come in and offload some things there, so everybody had to move out and this space appeared, so we reversed into this space. But there's not much space, as you can see, and because we can't go straight line backwards, we actually had one of the charter skippers who very kindly was in his dinghy, and he just acted as a tug and just shoved Florence's bum around so that we went back straight. But once we're in, it's pretty secure with 2 lines out to the shore. So there's a lot of movement and changing around in here, lots of charter boats coming in for 1 or 2 nights and then going again. And so when that happens, because we've all got our anchors out in quite a small space, some of them have set theirs over the top of ours and picked our anchor up, so we had to reset it a couple of times. So we're in and we've got neighbours either side of us. It's a great place to be, it's really calm, it's really comfortable, it's relaxing. But as soon as there's a gap next to us, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because you don't know who's going to come into that gap and how experienced they are at manoeuvring their boats. And there's been a couple that came in with no fenders down, and if we had not been on board to fend them off really hard when they came in, we could have had quite a lot of damage on Florence. So although on one hand it's relaxing, it's a fantastic place to be, on the other hand, again, living on a boat, you're always worried about your boat, especially when we're off up the mountain exploring.
Speaking of mountains, well, a small hill really.
We spent so long at sea level on the boat that getting up into the hills is a real treat. And here on the Digue we're going to try and climb up to the highest point on the island, which the highest point is only 333 metres above sea level. But since we haven't done very much hiking recently, that's a lot further than we usually go.
The official trail actually starts really close to the top at a restaurant called Bellevue, but we obviously need to start where the boat is, so we've got about an hour to get through the villages, but it's an absolutely gorgeous road because there's no traffic, and the houses and the guest houses on this road are just absolutely stunning.
Some giant tortoises here just on the side of the road, but they're in a pen. I don't really understand why they're in a pen. I didn't think they kept them, I thought they were just roaming wild. But
What are you doing?
zigzagging, it's easier. Too steep. I've been at sea level for too long. On a boat, not using the legs.
We're not even at the start of the trail yet and we've already got a fantastic view. I can see the island of Pralin, and some of the smaller islands are kind of just around the corner, so hopefully we'll see them soon. But we can also just catch a glimpse of Florence's mast in the harbour there. Such a pretty island.
It's easy to spot which mast is Florence's. It's just the shortest one. There are a few vehicles on the island for moving like building materials and stuff around, but that one said taxi on it, so I guess that's for some of the hotels. But mostly, like 90% at least of everybody gets around by bicycle or golf cart.
Or foot.
Or foot, like us. We've reached the start of the trail. It's pretty steep already. So this vine is vanilla, which the Seychelles are known for, but it didn't originally come from here. It originally came from Mexico and they imported it for the economic value. And the reason it's so expensive is apparently the flower only blooms for one day and it has to be pollinated by hand, so it's really labour intensive to farm. And down on the lower slopes there are actually vanilla plantations here.
Centipede and millipede.
Number of legs.
Wow, he is huge.
So-
Giant millipede.
There's several of them. Look at the size of this guy. Bit of a boulder scramble this bit.
I think we're nearly at the top.
Gorgeous views from up here, well worth the hike up. We love getting up high because it's something that we just don't do very often from Florence, constantly living at sea level. And from up here we can actually see that one of the other yachts in the cruising community, some of our friends have arrived. They're on a big 63-foot monohull and their keel is really deep, so there's no way that they get into the harbour where we are, because where Florence is at low tide we've only got about 10 centimetres under the keel. So they've had to anchor outside where it's a bit more rolly with the waves and dinghy in. We met these guys when we were sailing through Indonesia the first time back in 2019, and it's amazing, the cruising community, you bump into each other around the world as you're all kind of going the same direction round, but you go slightly different ways and then you come back together. It's always good to meet people again.
Lunch with a view, and this is my favourite kind of walk, the kind where you get to check on your boat when you have your lunch. I always worry about her when we're not on board. Although it's great to see that Florence is okay, we can also see at the moment that some of the neighbours are leaving, and there's a high chance that as they do so they can pick up our anchor, so it's going to be quite nerve-wracking watching this happen from up here. There's nothing we can do.
That's the problem with living on a boat. It's not as easy to just park up. It's a little bit more, there's lots more that can go wrong. So we always do worry a little when we leave the boat, but you've got to get used to it, otherwise you'd never leave the boat. Well, bye-bye La Digue. We had an amazing time exploring here. It's been great to be somewhere new and be out exploring and hiking. But now we've got to go sail all the way back to Mahé because it's time to lift Florence out and for some time in the yard, which we haven't had for 2 years. So there's a whole load of stuff we need to do, not least repainting the bottom.
Thankfully the weather and sea state for our sail back to Mahé were much more pleasant than on the way out.
This wooden holder is the holder from an old mackerel line that we were given in the UK. We beefed it up with some thicker line in Cape Verde, still back in 2016, and after sailing around for 5 years, we finally had a fish that has destroyed the holder. And this was the one that did it, which looks like a yellowfin tuna.
It's definitely a yellowfin tuna.
It's way too big for us to eat by ourselves, but luckily when we get to the anchorage there should be some other boats who will be very happy to share it. Next time we haul Florence out of the water for some much needed TLC. Boatyard time is never easy though. We find unexpected problems, and replacing a broken engine mount does not go smoothly. I'll be honest, it's stressing me out at the moment. I'm pretty scared about that.
If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and click the bell to get a notification when the next video is released. And let us know what you think of the video. We love reading all your comments.
We would like to thank everyone who supports us, and especially our star patrons.